The stage opens with tension already simmering beneath the surface. Greg Gutfeld leans forward with that signature grin that says he's about to ruin someone's night, while Tyrus quietly smirks beside him, the calm before the storm. Jasmine Crockett, on the other side of the panel, has that restless energy of someone who came to perform, not discuss. And that's exactly how the chaos begins, from the very first second. The tone is set, cutting, confrontational, and drenched in confidence. Gutfeld wastes no time. "She's back again," he begins, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "The woman who mistakes noise for knowledge." The crowd erupts, and the camera captures Crockett's forced smile. Tyrus chuckles under his breath, muttering something sly, a tag team of intellect and wit, sharpening their knives. In this opening, Crockett is introduced not as a political figure, but as a caricature, the embodiment of misplaced confidence. Gutfeld and Tyrus know exactly what they're doing, control the energy of the room before she does. Every glance, every pause, every smirk builds tension. The audience senses it. Something big is coming. The narrator's voice cuts in. When words fail, volume takes over. Tonight, Jasmine Crockett learns that lesson the hard way. The statement lands heavy. It's not just a teaser, it's a promise. A promise of reckoning, of a meltdown that will soon unfold in real time. Crockett tries to interject, but Gutfeld waves her off with theatrical flair. "Relax," he says. "We'll let you talk after the facts finish talking." The audience laughs, and her expression shifts from amused to irritated. That moment, a flicker of pride cracking, becomes the emotional hook. Everything about the first minute is designed to grip viewers. The sharp humor, the subtle humiliation, the rhythmic back and forth that feels more like a roast than a political debate. The visuals are quick, camera flashes between smirks, glares, and audience reactions. The background music pulses lightly, emphasizing every sarcastic punchline. And as the laughter fades, Gutfeld drops one final line before the transition. "We're not here to argue feelings, Jasmine. We're here to expose them." That's the strike that seals the tone. The hook has done its job. Viewers are locked in, waiting to see just how spectacularly the meltdown will unfold. Asterisk after the explosive opening. The scene shifts to the foundation of the conflict, the why behind the meltdown. The narrator's tone steadies, setting the stage with a recap of Jasmine Crockett's earlier remarks that ignited this showdown. Clips flash across the screen, Crockett in previous interviews, speaking with exaggerated confidence, throwing sharp accusations at conservatives while branding herself as a voice of truth. Tonight, that same confidence feels misplaced. The voiceover cuts in with precision. This isn't the first time Jasmine Crockett has mistaken theatrics for thought. That line defines the mood. The setup phase doesn't just provide background. It positions Crockett's behavior as a recurring pattern, a character flaw, rather than a single mistake. The narration transitions between short sound bites of her speeches in slow motion, reactions of Gutfeld and Tyrus exchanging amused looks, silently communicating that they've seen this act before. Tyrus breaks the silence with a low chuckle. "Here we go again," he says. Same script, different headline. The studio laughs, but Crockett doesn't. Her expression tightens. Her posture shifts, the body language of someone realizing the tide is turning before the debate even starts. Gutfeld, now fully in control, uses humor as a blade. "She came armed with talking points," he quips, but forgot to bring the facts. Visually, the production emphasizes contrast, Crockett's animated gestures and raised tone versus Gutfeld's calm, surgical responses. The camera pans across the audience, capturing smirks and whispers that mirror the growing imbalance of power on stage. Every second builds anticipation, amplifying the sense that Crockett is walking into a trap of her own making. Then comes the defining setup moment. The preview of the impending meltdown. Crockett interrupts mid-sentence, trying to redirect the conversation. Gutfeld raises an eyebrow, unbothered. "You sound passionate," he says coolly, "but passion isn't proof." The room bursts into laughter again, but this time, it's not friendly. The laughter stings. The narrator delivers the final contextual line. "When the facts fade, Volume fills the gap. And Jasmine Crockett has never been short on volume. The scene fades to black with a short montage, Crockett frowning, Gutfeld smirking, Tyrus sipping his coffee. The storm is brewing, and viewers can feel it, the stage perfectly set for the inevitable unraveling in the next act. Asterisk. The tension now shifts from playful mockery to something sharper, the atmosphere thick with unspoken challenge. The lights feel brighter, the air heavier, as Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus prepare to go in. Crockett sits upright, forcing a confident smile, but her eyes betray a flicker of unease. The calm before the storm has never felt quieter. Gutfeld starts slowly, his tone deceptively casual. "Jasmine," he says, "you've had a lot to say lately about fairness, equality, and respect." He pauses, leaning forward. "But isn't it ironic that the loudest voice in the room always demands the last word?" The crowd chuckles. It's not an outright insult, not yet, but a gentle poke designed to draw her out. And it works. Crockett fires back with a rehearsed line about silencing strong women, but the moment she does, Tyrus smirks. "Strong," he mutters under his breath, but not steady. The studio bursts into laughter again. This is where the build-up phase does its work. Each sentence becomes a step toward the breaking point. Gutfeld doesn't rush. He dismantles slowly, layer by layer. He plays the intellectual chess player, forcing Crockett to make impulsive moves. "You talk about leadership," he says smoothly, "but leadership isn't about being the loudest. It's about being listened to after the noise fades." The jab lands cleanly, half insult, half truth, and Crockett's patience begins to crumble. The narrator cuts in, explaining what's unfolding beneath the surface. When confidence collides with composure, the louder side always cracks first. The camera zooms on Crockett's clenched jaw, her hand tapping on the desk. The rhythm of the scene builds like a heartbeat, each exchange faster. It's tighter, closer to explosion. Tyrus adds fuel without saying much. His timing is perfect. A one-line response here, a knowing grin there. "We're just trying to understand," he says in mock sincerity, "but every time we ask a question, we get a performance." The words hang in the air like smoke. By now, the audience senses what's coming. The balance has shifted completely. Crockett is visibly agitated, while Gutfeld and Tyrus remain cool and controlled. The segment ends with one final cutaway, Crockett's frustrated sigh echoing under the narrator's line. Pressure doesn't build character. It exposes it. The meltdown is seconds away. Asterisk, the moment of eruption arrives. The polite exchanges and careful jabs have evaporated, replaced by sharp edges and verbal fire. Jasmine Crockett leans forward, her voice rising as she tries to regain control of the conversation. "You two think this is funny?" She snaps, gesturing toward Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus. Her tone is defensive, her rhythm frantic. The crowd reacts instantly, some laughing, others gasping, the energy in the room splitting in half. Gutfeld doesn't flinch. His smile widens, calm and deliberate. "We don't think it's funny, Jasmine," he replies coolly. "We think it's familiar." That single line stops her mid-sentence. He continues, "Every time you run out of facts, you turn up the volume. Every time someone challenges you, you call it disrespect. But maybe it's just reality catching up." The audience explodes. Laughter, applause, murmurs of agreement. The entire studio becomes part of the confrontation. Crockett tries to speak again, but Tyrus cuts in, his tone slow and controlled. The kind of voice that lands heavier than shouting. "You know, it's funny," he says. "You accuse everyone else of playing games, but you showed up with a script." Crowd roars again. Gutfeld chuckles, glancing at Tyrus like a boxer acknowledging his partner's perfect punch. The camera captures every flicker of Crockett's reaction. The clenched fists, the tight smile, the eyes darting between them. Looking for a way to pivot, but there's no escape. Gutfeld doubles down, leaning into his role as the unshaken debater. "Look," he says, "you can perform for the cameras all you want. Just don't confuse applause with respect." His words slice through the air like a final verdict. The narrator's voice overlays the chaos. Giving it cinematic depth, the meltdown wasn't spontaneous. It was the sound of a mask slipping live, unfiltered, and irreversible. Crockett raises her voice, trying to steer the conversation back to her points, but the rhythm is gone. Her tone cracks, her confidence fading under the weight of precision and humor combined. Asterisk as the laughter crescendos. The camera pans to Gutfeld's calm expression, relaxed, unbothered, victorious, without needing to declare it. The narrator concludes this segment with the perfect closing beat. It wasn't a debate anymore, it was an exposure. And Jasmine Crockett had nowhere left to hide. The studio lights fade slightly as the clash ends, leaving the audience buzzing with energy. The storm has passed, but its echoes linger in the air. Jasmine Crockett sits back in her chair, visibly rattled, trying to collect herself as the audience's laughter fades into murmurs. Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus exchange a knowing glance, not smug, but satisfied, the look of men who knew the outcome before the first word was spoken. Clash is over, yet its impact is only beginning to unfold. Within minutes, clips of the exchange start circulating online. The narrator describes it with deliberate rhythm. The debate hadn't even ended before the internet decided who won.
On screen?
Snippets of tweets and memes flash by, captions like, "Crockett crumbles on live TV," and "Gutfeld 3, Crockett 0. The internet has spoken, and its verdict is brutal. Back in the studio, Gutfeld keeps his tone light. "Hey, Jasmine," he says with mock sympathy. "Don't worry, maybe your next interview will go better." The crowd laughs again. Not cruelly, but collectively, as if the entire room understands they've just witnessed a professional undoing. Tyrus adds softly, "You can't rehearse authenticity." That line lands like the final nail in the coffin. The narrator breaks in. Weaving the real-time fallout with commentary, humiliation travels faster than headlines. What was meant to be a fiery defense turned into a public unraveling. Crockett attempts a comeback, a sarcastic smile, a shrug, but the moment is gone. Every word she speaks now feels like damage control, and Gutfeld knows it. He doesn't interrupt. He simply lets her words collapse under their own weight. Online, the reaction snowballs. News accounts, reaction channels, and parody pages amplify every second of her meltdown. The screen shows side-by-side clips, her fiery rant contrasted with Gutfeld's calm demeanor. The message is clear without a single narrator's word. Control beats chaos as the segment nears its end. The voiceover softens, turning reflective. Some lessons are learned quietly. Others are broadcast to millions. The final image shows Crockett looking down at her notes, while Tyrus chuckles in the background. The contrast is striking, one figure struggling to recover dignity, the other effortlessly in command. The fallout isn't just social or political, it's psychological. The meltdown became a mirror, and for Jasmine Crockett, the reflection wasn't flattering. The damage is done, the internet is feasting, and the story has just transformed into legend. Asterisk as the laughter and applause fade. The tone of the show shifts from comedy to contemplation. The chaos has subsided, and what remains is the unmistakable calm of realization. The camera lingers on Greg Gutfeld, who leans back, composed and silent. His expression says everything. He doesn't need to celebrate the victory because the contrast has already spoken for itself. Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, still appears tense. Caught between pride and embarrassment, the narrator's voice enters. Lower and steadier now, every debate has a winner, but not all victories are loud. Some are quiet, patient, and absolute. That line reframes the entire segment. It's not just about who shouted the most or who scored the best punchline. It's about who stayed in control when emotions tried to take over. Gutfeld breaks the silence with a measured tone. "You know, this isn't about politics," he says. "It's about discipline. You can't teach calm under fire. You either have it or you don't." His co-hosts nod and the audience responds with approving murmurs. The energy is transformed from laughter to respect. The show that began as a roast has now evolved into a moment of truth. Tyrus follows up, his voice carrying quiet authority. "The loudest person in the room usually thinks they're winning," he says, "but they're just drowning themselves out." That sentence lands with weight. The camera cuts briefly to Crockett, who forces a polite smile, but the discomfort in her eyes betrays her. The moral contrast is undeniable. The narrator continues, "There's a reason composure feels like power, because it is. Emotion might start a fire, but reason decides who survives it." Visuals replay short clips of the confrontation. Now slowed down, Crockett shouting, Gutfeld smirking, Tyrus calmly sipping his drink. The pacing and tone make it feel like a highlight reel of restraint, overpowering chaos. The reflection ends with, "Softer yet firm. If you mistake noise for impact, you'll always end up making echoes instead of change." The audience applauds. Not out of mockery, but admiration. By the end of this segment, the confrontation is transformed into a lesson one about composure, credibility, and the quiet dominance of self-control. The laughter that once filled the room now gives way to understanding. The show has turned from spectacle to statement. Asterisk with the studio, calm again. The discussion moves beyond Jasmine Crockett's meltdown and into something bigger. A reflection on what moments like this say about politics today. The narrator's voice takes on a thoughtful tone. In a world where outrage sells, the loudest often mistake attention for influence. That single line sets the stage for a deeper commentary. Greg Gutfeld, now relaxed and slightly smiling, gestures toward the camera. "This isn't about one person," he begins. "It's about a culture that rewards noise. It's not leadership, it's performance." His words cut through the laughter that once filled the room, replacing it with reflection. "You can't hashtag your way to respect," he adds, driving the message home. The audience responds with quiet applause, the kind that comes from agreement rather than amusement. Tyrus builds on that thought, his voice firm but calm. "Every week someone tries to go viral instead of going honest," he says, "but the truth always finds its way through the noise. And when it does, it's not pretty." The camera pans over the audience, heads nodding, people smiling knowingly. This is no longer just entertainment. It's a critique of the performative politics that have taken center stage in modern media. The narrator interjects with cinematic weight. The meltdown wasn't just a moment, it was a mirror. It reflected a generation of public figures more interested in applause than accountability. Archival clips flash across the screen, other viral rants, emotional outbursts, exaggerated speeches, all set against a steady reflective soundtrack. The contrast is striking. Faces red with anger, voices cracking, gestures exaggerated. The visuals serve as proof of Gutfeld's point. Politics has become theater, and not everyone is suited for the stage. Gutfeld ends the commentary with a final observation. Real strength isn't measured by how loud you speak, but by how little you need to. It's quiet, simple, and powerful. The audience responds with thoughtful silence before breaking into applause. The narrator closes this segment with a succinct line. The meltdown faded, but the message remained. Authenticity outlasts theatrics every time. The broader takeaway is clear. Crockett's outburst wasn't just her personal undoing, it symbolized the wider collapse of performative leadership. The confrontation, now beyond its entertainment value, it becomes a cautionary tale about integrity in an age obsessed with attention. Asterisk as the dust settles from the fiery clash. The aftermath unfolds both online and across political circles. Social media becomes the battlefield, flooded with clips, memes, and sharp commentary. One viral edit shows Greg Gutfeld standing calmly while Jasmine Crockett flails in frustration. The caption reads, "Facts don't flinch." It spreads like wildfire, symbolizing how the public interpreted the encounter. Within hours, major outlets pick up the story, framing it as a defining moment in modern media politics. Some call it a masterclass in composure. Others label it a political roasting. But the sentiment remains. Crockett's performance backfired. Even her usual supporters begin distancing themselves. Unsure how to defend what had clearly turned into a self-inflicted spectacle, the narrator's tone grows reflective. Every era has its wake-up call. And this one came in the form of a televised reckoning. Gutfeld's calm precision, Tyrus's blunt honesty, and Crockett's emotional unraveling created a contrast too striking to ignore. Viewers didn't just witness a debate, they saw a shift in how accountability plays out in real time, back in the studio. Gutfeld closes the night with his trademark smirk and one-liner. If you bring theatrics to a truth fight, don't be surprised when reality wins. The audience laughs. But the message lands with clarity. The scene fades out with the narrator's final words. In an age where outrage trends faster than truth, moments like these remind us that integrity doesn't shout, it stands. The meltdown ends, but the echo of it lingers, a public reminder that while noise fades, authenticity endures. What started as another viral clash ends as a symbol of what's missing in modern politics: grace under pressure and substance over spectacle. Asterisk. What you just witnessed wasn't merely another media showdown. It was a wake-up call. The clash between Jasmine Crockett, Greg Gutfeld, and Tyrus revealed something bigger than politics. It exposed the growing divide between performance and principle. And if you're tired of seeing emotional theatrics replace real conversation, it's time to take a stand for truth, logic, and accountability. If this moment resonated with you, don't let it fade into the scroll. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. Every week, we break down moments like these. It's cutting through the noise to reveal what's really happening behind the headlines. No scripts, no spin. Just unfiltered reality and the courage to call it out. Join a community that values reason over rage, where discussions are deep, respectful, and grounded in facts. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Did Crockett's meltdown change how you see today's media debates? Your voice matters, and when truth seekers unite, we set a new standard for public dialogue.